Hello, my name is Emerson Thomas Best, and this is my response to Maddie Volling, I hope I'm saying her name correctly, who argued that there is a possibility of war between big powers. I disagree with this because of a couple reasons. Number one, she argues that big powers could be dragged into another war with each other based on alliances with other nations, similar to how World War I started. I don't believe this to be true because the United States is a member of NATO, which formed after World War II. And NATO is basically a organization with 30 members, 30 different countries, and they basically say if you attack him, I'll attack you. Very similar to the World War One thing, but again, only 30 countries are in it. And I don't believe a nation who isn't a member of NATO would invade or attack a country who is in NATO because of the repercussions of the 30 countries who are members of NATO. I do not believe a non-NATO member would be foolish enough to go to war with NATO. Um, it just doesn't make sense to me. Second, today there are a lot of different options that the US could employ that don't involve going to war or armed conflict that we couldn't do back in the time of World War One. We can now sanction a country which causes massive damage to their economy, which would, in my opinion, impede their ability to mobilize a war effort against us. The United States is also a much more powerful nation with a lot more influence than back then. Other countries know how powerful we are, and I believe that our world presence is enough to have other countries have second thoughts about entering a war with us. Um, she then brings up the killing of Iranian General Soleimani and how Russia would come to the aid of Iran. Again, as stated previously, I do not believe that they would because of NATO. Um, Russia would not attack a member of NATO because they would be crushed by the 30 countries in NATO. Russia is not a member of NATO. Um, um, yeah, so I just don't believe that they would attack. That wouldn't make sense. Anyway, Iran does not want to go to war with us to begin with, even though we killed Soleimani. But even if they did, we did sanction them heavily, and which unfortunately did ruin their economy. But I believe it would be very difficult for them to mobilize a war effort against us with such a bad economy. Um, and also, we have devices that we did not have back in World War One that could destroy the world. Um, and I'm talking about nuclear weapons. Russia, China, and the United States all have nuclear bombs, and all three of us know how devastating nuclear war would be. And I do not believe that they would want to end the world with nuclear war. Um, we all live on one planet, so I don't believe that the war or the world would be ended um, because of that. I mean, they live on the same planet we do, so that just doesn't make sense to me. Um, Also, the Chinese do have economic interests with the United States. I don't think they want to jeopardize that by going to war with us. Our economies really depend on each other, and we rely on them for manufacturing, and we also import and export goods between our two countries. I do not believe China would want to jeopardize a relationship they have with the United States because we are such a big economic ally for them. And lastly, as stated before, the United States is part of NATO, um, or the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, which was formed after World War II. Countries in NATO agreed to defend each other from external threats and non NATO countries. Russia and China are not members of NATO. This means that if they were to attack the United States, the other countries in NATO would come to the aid of the United States. The United States being a part of NATO would make Russia and China think twice before going to war. There is no way Russia and China could defeat NATO and the United States. Being part of NATO helps prevent the major world powers going to war with each other. I mean, that is what NATO was created for, to prevent future wars between world powers. Overall, Maddie's argument was very well thought out. It was very good, and it really made me think. But times change, and people change. And I believe in 2020 and beyond, I do not think that the world powers would jeopardize our planet with nuclear war. Thank you.